Ever wanted to put yourself or one of your characters in a video game? Donate to the Terrain of Magical Expertise Kickstarter, and you could be a background character or even a fully animated enemy in this brand new RPG adventure. Click the link in the description below or at the end of the video. Lights, camera, action! It's a Kirblog Voiceoctover 2017 is on. Whoa, whoa, and I've got a guest. His name's Ian! There we go. I wasn't the second take I did that. No, it was perfect the first time.
So good. So good.
Welcome, everybody, to Voiceoctober 2017, where I interview various veterans of the voiceover world. My second guest is another very different one, also not just a voice actor. In fact, one of the first... he's not only one of the first generation of working VO folks from Vancouver, Canada, but he is also a creator. And he was once upon a time the voice of Goku on DBZ. He's been Mega Man in the Ruby Spears Mega Man series, Cheetor from Beast Wars, the dad on Johnny Test. He's been Funshine Bear, the conductor on Dinosaur Train, much, much more, dear God. And not the least of which, he was also the creator behind such animated shows as Yvon of the Yukon and Being Ian. I'm joined by the good Mr. Ian James Corlett. Thanks for making the time today, sir.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
Yes, excellent. We were talking mildly off mic earlier. I was hoping to get you last year as the representative of Vancouver for that territory in particular, but things got busy, so I had to settle for this hacky sort of guy named Trevor Devil, I think.
The upstart. That's what I call him.
He's okay. He's okay. No, I love Trevor. Actually, I feel bad because I haven't taught with him since I did that interview with him a year ago. But he is lovely. But nonetheless, well, we're talking about him, talking about you. Ian, if you don't mind my saying, first of all, we met for a brief moment a while ago when the Ratchet and Clank movie was in theaters, and the lovely and talented Erin Fitzgerald, fellow Vancouverite, introduced us.
Yes, I remember it.
She's lovely, and you guys were you both in? I don't know, maybe Erin wasn't because she was here, but you were in the Ratchet and Clank movie as a bunch of guys. Yeah?
Yes. Erin was my date that night.
Oh,
movie date.
She's lovely.
Yes, she is. Great person.
So you have, I if you don't mind my saying, I have grown up with virtually most of the stuff that you've done throughout your career. I apologize for, I guess, dating both of us with that statement, but it's true. You've been doing this for quite a long time. I'm sure in a lot of other, I don't know how often you do, podcast interviews or things like this or whatever. So I don't want to, harp too much on the generic stuff, but you want to give a semi-brief history as to, like, I guess, kind of how you got started in the VO world before we dig into the more meaty stuff, I guess.
Sure, and never apologize. I get that a lot, and I'm quite used to it. It was weird the first few times that I had someone come up to me, and the usual line is, "You were my childhood," and it's okay. I have no problem with that. I think it's actually lovely to hear. So. My history in voiceover is kind of weird. It comes through a love for filmmaking and animation. And when I was a little kid, ever since I can remember, I was totally into cartoons. And I started making my own little claymation stop motion films just in the basement. And did a bunch of those sorts of things just for fun with my little 8mm camera. And then I learned that, what did I do? I did the very first film I made that was like for a purpose. I think it was grade 7. We say grade 7 in Canada, not 7th grade.
That's fine. It's fine.
But you understand.
Well, do you have junior high or middle school? I forget what's
well, I think they call it middle school now, but it was always junior high when I was in school.
Yes.
It's the slow creep of Americanization that is enveloping the world.
Ruining.
So I did this little claymation thing. It was like for a science project, and I thought, hey, you know what will ensure that I'll get a good grade? Doing something that no one else will do. So I did this little claymation movie on volcanoes and made it entertaining. And then my teacher said, there's a film festival. What? Yeah, there's a Burnaby Film Festival. Now, Vancouver, I don't even know if it was 1 million people at that point. And Burnaby was a suburb of Vancouver, so it was even smaller. And I thought, wow, this is the big time. I'm going to enter a film festival. And I won because I was so young. And then fast forward to, I made tons of more movies because I loved it, all 8 millimeter, and ended up winning the most promising filmmaker in British Columbia award when I graduated high school. And then promptly didn't make another film because, I don't know, there was no movie industry to speak of in Vancouver at that time. We were not Hollywood North. And my dream was to sort of do a Spielberg, which was, get a job in a studio, sweeping up and learn and make films that way as opposed to going to film school. So anyway, I kind of retired, and then the performing, making bug still was within me, and I started to notice that there was a lot of radio commercials being recorded in Vancouver. At that time, it was quite a hub for national and international radio commercials. A lot of comedy, a lot of music coming out of here. It was just a weird little time and pocket, late 70s. There was a whole bunch of production going on. So I went, hey, you know what? I think I can do voices, because I did it for my stuff, and just started pounding the pavement, broke into the commercial voiceover business in Vancouver. And then in the early 80s, the animation work started to creep into town from Los Angeles and other parts of the world. And the producers went to the radio production people saying, hey, where would we find voices? So I got into that group, and that's how it all kind of began. And I think the first cartoon I ever did was Captain N the Game Master, or maybe Kissy Fur.
Okay. I do remember that Captain M was like among the very, very first of the shows that was done there, because for a long time, and actually I didn't even realize this until later, Toronto for a long time, that's where a lot of the cartoons were being done. And actually even I think Tabitha St. Germain was doing a lot of stuff there before she went to Vancouver too.
Yeah, definitely. Like Toronto, I think was first, and then Los Angeles went, oh, that's a different time zone. And they started looking westward. And the fact that the movie industry, TV industry really had started by that point in Vancouver, it helped things. So there was already kind of a, oh, okay, that's actually a lot closer. I think let's look there.
This is easier for us on the flight expenses.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I was going to ask. Yeah, by that point, was that when like I don't know if like X-Files was yet, but like was a lot of live action stuff being done up there by that point?
The first, I think some of the first stuff was the Stephen Cannell stuff. Oh shoot, what was it called?
That one show, you know the one.
No, I did. Oh, Ken Wall was in it. He was like an ex-gangster that turned to the police. Oh man, hang on. I gotta look this up.
IMDb that. I remember there was 21 Jump Street. I think was a big
21
one.
Jump Street was early. This is good. This is good radio.
Searching on the most reliable website that has always correct information at every time.
Yeah, that's it.
That's the one.
I'll find it. I'll find it.
No problem. Well, I also wanted to bring up, and I feel so
Wise
bad 'cause
Guy.
I can't.
Sorry
Wise
to
Guy.
interrupt.
No, that's okay. We got it.
Wise Guy was one of, if not the first of a real TV series that was done here, and actually it was a really good show. Nice. And voiceover connection. Here comes the connections. Jim Burns of Jim Burns fame, Beast Wars, etc., lots of stuff, was in that show.
Yeah. In fact, it's funny. Anytime I see, Gary Chalk is often the certification of like, well, this was filmed in Vancouver because
Well, he was cop 3 in every production ever made.
Yeah, I swear to God. I was seeing Watchmen. This is a number of years ago already, but Watchmen. I was just like, oh, there's Gary. Oh, there's Clay St. Thomas. Oh, there's Alessandro Giuliani. I was like, oh, they're everywhere, all over this movie.
Yep.
That's sad. And then I'm the one person like freaking out because I'm such a I think Aaron Fitzgerald commented on this. I'm a walking, talking voiceover encyclopedia. So like, I'm in a movie and none of my friends who know what the hell I'm talking about. Like, that's Optimus Prime. So it's just like, Chris, shut the hell up.
We need people like you. You're fantastic.
But I was going to say, so regarding the kind of the beginning of the animation world being brought over, I do remember on because I've been re-listening to Voice Print with Trevor DeVal and guests, which you were on a number of years ago. You were talking about this one woman whose name is escaping me, who you were crediting to like practically single-handedly bringing the animation business to Vancouver.
Yes, and there should be no argument to this. Mm-hmm. Her name is Josanne Lovick. And her production company was called BLT. Actually, I think it initially was probably called Lovick Productions. Mm-hmm. But she expended much shoe leather and effort to bring the voice work to Vancouver. And it was probably because she was a real mover and shaker. And it was likely because she had heard, hey, they're going to Toronto. Why are they going to Toronto? They should come up here. And that's, I owe a lot to Josanne and her company. She was great.
So talking about that early time, so there was, because I've looked up on, the shows of that era as well. And it was a very, very small pool of folks that like you guys did like absolutely everything. This was, I guess, you, Gary, Phil Hayes, I think, right?
Yeah.
God, who else? Was Scott actually?
McNeil. Yeah,
was he just a little bit later, or was he like right at the beginning?
No, he was right at the beginning.
Okay.
He was. What did he do in?
Because I remember in the beginning he was like scared. He was terrified by like the early American voice directors that were coming in and like verbally beating the crap out of him. And he was like, "I'm not doing this." And now he's Scott McNeil.
Yeah, there were a few. There was a guy that used to like to bang on the desk really hard, right into the microphone. Stu Rosen.
Oh yes, yeah. That's
he directed Kissy Fur and did a bunch of voices in Kissy Fur, and I think he also did something else too. But I never had a problem with him because I'm not a typical actor. You know this from being in sessions. Some people get not some people. There is a general sensitivity to a line read. Don't give an actor a line read. Please, if it'll help, just give it to me, and I'll do it just the way you want it. And Stu was just one of these guys who he wanted it his way, and he was quite impetuous, to put it mildly. And I just viewed it all as like, hey, teach me. What do you do? I don't know. Sure. Yeah. You want to like that? Yeah, no problem. Mm-hmm. So I'm kind of like I'm a little grumpier now that I'm older, but it's never about a line read. It's more about like my thing is I just love it when productions and directors know what they want.
Yeah. For sure.
And when they get it, let's move on.
Yeah, I mean, like for me too. I mean, and actually, this is I think what we share because I'm a creator. I do animation, and that's my main thing. Voiceover just oddly has been like, oh, this is what I'm paying my bills with. What happened?
Yeah.
No, to me, and even if I'm like directing or working on somebody else's thing, like to me, it's always got to be about the final product and not about. I keep saying it's like everybody thinks that acting is like an ego-driven business, but it's supposed to be about servicing the audience and what they want and what is going to entertain them the most. So when we all just kind of get on the same page and just do what's best for the end result, I think that's then we can all walk away happy. But It's so odd too to like even imagine like any of you guys as like, oh, we're just starting out, kind of thing, because I'm just so like, it's weird because I come from like a new-ish generation of folks.
Sure.
I've been doing this for about like 7-ish years or so.
Yeah.
I didn't really start doing it a lot until the last couple of years because I moved out to LA. But yeah, I mean, like, because a lot of people of my age range, several of those people, we come from like, oh, I'm interested in specifically voiceover for animation and video games and doing ADR for anime and that sort of stuff.
It's a new phenomenon. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it must be, I know you've done some conventions and things. It must be really surreal, coming from your perspective where it's like, you were doing this forever and then you got into it when it just happened to pop up. But yeah, no, I mean, things have changed quite.
It's very strange to me because, and I think the biggest difference in our working world is the internet. When I was a kid, I mean, I would not classify myself as encyclopedic as you. Mm-hmm. But I definitely, I mean, no one knew a voice actor other than Mel Blanc.
Yeah.
Like, Mel Blanc, he does Flintstones and stuff, yeah. And sure, that's great. But, like, I knew guys like Dawes Butler and listened to Stan Freberg. This is due to my family, and our road trips to California. That's what we listened to. We had 8-track tapes full of Stan Freberg and old radio comedy and stuff. And so I knew all of those guys, and I would hear Mel Blanc, on the Jack Benny show and stuff. And it was like, oh, wow, that's that guy that ended up doing, oh, okay, I get it. So I was a giant fan, similar to you when I was a kid, but there was like zero access to information. I mean, you had to really, really hunt and look and watch if they even gave a credit to the voice actors. Mm-hmm. So, yes, it is very odd to me that there is this giant fan base, and then out of that, a whole generation of people that go, I want to be a voice actor. And this new term, VA, which like is relatively new, and I had to learn that. I go, what the heck are they talking about with VA? What's a VA? Oh, it's voice actor.
That's me.
I get it. And it's neat. I mean, it's neat. But the one of the number one questions at conventions, there's usually a panel on voice acting. How to? And I find and you've probably noticed this too, the biggest misconception is people can do funny voices and they want to be a voice actor, or they watch a lot of anime and they want to do that kind of acting. And, the number one thing that I always suggest is it's about acting. It is about acting. Now, I'm one of the rare guys who, except for going, doing a favor once in a while or a couple of auditions in my early days, I don't want to be an on-camera actor, period. Mm-hmm. It was always voice for me. And it was voice and making things. So that's where my filmmaker history kind of comes into it. So writing, making, producing, voicing, anything that you don't have to see me, even though I am incredibly handsome.
Oh, well, and also, I mean, having the radio background too. Like radio actually, I find to be like the lesser common of the traditional backgrounds, because like mostly I find it's theater folks.
Yes.
But yeah, it seemed like actually in Canada for that early time there were a lot of folks that were coming from radio.
Yeah, Mike Donovan was one of them.
Yes, that's right. Who I had the pleasure of working with on an episode of OKKO. Because
I gotta get on that show. Come on, get me in there.
My God, yes, I'll hit up Ian. Actually, it's the other Ian. There's many Ians.
Awesome.
No, actually, it's funny. They cast Mike Donovan based off of a character he did in the Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog series. Like that. The first one with Long John Baldry as Dr. Robotnik.
Oh, fantastic
and
series!
You were Coconuts in that, yeah.
I was one of my favorite characters of all time.
He was a fun guy.
Yeah.
So yeah. Sorry, going back, getting off track, but so maybe this is going to sound like a generic question, but it really is out of this sense of wonderment because, like, I want to know what it was like back then, where it was literally just like, I guess, like the 10 or 15 of you guys that did everything.
Yeah.
And like, I don't know how many handfuls of shows or whatever, but like that era of, like, I guess maybe late 80s or early 90s or whatever. Like, what was that like for you guys, just kind of getting started with all this?
Well, I'll tell you honestly, I don't think anyone thought anything other than, wow, this is great. This is a whole new world of work. And the notion that that we would be ever recognized or become part of the fabric of, animation history and fandom and all of that stuff was completely not on the radar. I mean, I didn't even, speaking personally anyway, like I didn't think there'd ever be some giant fan base of shows that we did. And, it's kind of hard to I don't know, I'm thinking about like the sessions were insane. They were really, really crazy. And it depended on the show and the ratio between men and women or boys and girls. And we in the early days, most of the shows were directed by Los Angeles directors, so they were run like a Los Angeles production. And of course, in those days, most of animation was recorded with everyone in the room, sort of radio play style. Unlike today, where it's all over the place. I mean, half the shows I do in LA, I'm the only one in the room. So,
that sounds fun.
Yeah. Well, for me, I'll take it either way. I don't mind at all. I work well alone. It's not that I don't like people, but it's fine. It's fine. One thing you do know is like, oh boy, that's not going to take long. So that's good because there's nothing like sitting in a session if something's going haywire and it's got absolutely nothing to do with you. And you're just sitting there going, oh, dear, how long is this going to take?
I'm curious, actually. I remember I've never found any kind of like interview or anything whatsoever, but I know of him by name from so many things. Doug Parker was.
Oh, yeah.
Like, he was an early voice director, like in Canada. Yeah.
Yeah, you should get him. He worked for BLT. He was Josanne's right hand man. And Doug is a character, man. You should get him on your show for sure.
Yeah, no, I mean, because I know that he's associated with so many of the early day stuff and like voicing in a lot of things too. I now if I ever hear him in like anything once in a while, I'm like, oh yeah, Doug Parker's still doing stuff.
Yeah. Well, I think his big. I think he transitioned to industrial electrician.
Oh.
I mean, it's not like he doesn't do anything, but I think his main job has changed. Okay. And he was great. He was one of the early Vancouver-based directors. So just back to your, I'm still not really answering your question.
No, it's okay. It's all good. It's all good.
It was. They were similar to any other cartoon session, but there was definitely an insanity to them, especially if you had Phil Hayes, me, another guy who would get into it was Dale Wilson. He was the elder statesman.
Ah, yes.
And
the man
we would
from
do
Glad
this
as well.
Yeah, exactly. We would do this insane, stupid stuff. Every time there was a break, we would crumple up a page of script and chuck it at each other. And in the Ocean Studios, there are these you probably know what I'm talking about. They're ceiling clouds, like they have these sound panels that are suspended from the ceiling on wires. Mm-hmm. And if you ever get into Ocean Studios and look up, you can still see pieces of paper hanging that landed on top of these clouds.
The marks you've left.
Yeah, it was crazy. And then as voice directors and staff changed, there was some more Canadian local voice directors, they got way tighter. Their butts are tight as tight can be. Stop it. You're like kindergarten children. Oh, shut up. Let's, making cartoons is supposed to be kind of fun.
Well, for a while, was it like literally like every other week or month or whatever? It's like, all right, so we're doing a show about da-da-da. We're doing Care Bears, or we're doing this thing that's based on a video game or something. And it's like, oh, hey, okay, it's you five, and we're going to do this, and you're going to do everything.
No. It was always, we were always cast. There was always an audition process. But I can only assume that the talent pool was just smaller. And now it's as we said, everyone wants to be a voice actor. Yeah. And there was also this phenomenon of TV actors going, yeah, I think that sounds like good money. I'm going to try that, and then he'd come in and crash and burn because they are absolutely lifeless, most of them. It's the rare TV or movie actor that does well in voiceover. And you've probably noticed that too in features and stuff that you see with big name talent.
Yeah.
It's a different skill set, and it's not a knock on TV actors because Lord knows I couldn't do what they do, even though I'm incredibly handsome. No, it's a terrible joke.
Oh,
incredibly bad joke is what that is. But
it's making me laugh, so clearly it's working.
But the people who do well in voiceover, in like as far as a transition career goes, is theater people. They get it.
Yeah,
because it's a lot more. It's bigger and broader. Even though, now I'm contradicting myself. A lot of voiceover cartoons lately have been more theatrical, more TV, but I don't think they're that good.
Oh my God. Well, actually, something that popped to mind, and this is also quite relevant to you because of your children.
Yes.
One of the things that I always really credited Vancouver a lot to, and I feel like that now it's starting to come back, especially with Cartoon Network in particular, because they do this a lot. But Vancouver, in all their stuff, even their anime, which I was very happy about, was they would get a lot of really solid kid actors.
Yeah.
I still remember when like Andrea Libman and Andrew Francis, I grew up with like the stuff when they were kids.
Yeah, I remember them when they were little.
Now I here Andrew, he was very kind to do a little small part on a web series I did a few years ago.
Oh, cool.
Because I love his work, and but it's interesting to see like a lot of those guys, not every one of them, but a lot of them went on to continue and still do this now. And now I know particularly your daughter Claire, who is hysterical on My Little Pony.
Thank you.
And then do you have? Is she the only one, or do you have other kids that are doing this as well? Right?
Yeah, my son Philip, who is now retired from voiceover because of the dreaded voice change.
Oh no!
It happens to boys. He was the original Buddy in Dinosaur Train.
Oh.
So for most of Dinosaur Train's run, the Buddy voice is Philip and the tiny voice is Claire, real brothers and sisters. And it was really weird. It was so weird. It was, like people who have normal jobs in offices that, they have once in a while, like take your kids to work day. Ours was, we're all going to work today.
Together.
Yeah, so I would sit as far away from them as possible and keep my head down and try not to be a dad or a director and just let Craig Bartlett, the amazing director and creator of that show, the creative force behind Dinosaur Train.
And also creator of Hey Arnold, which I love
Hey Arnold,
much.
Exactly. Movie coming out soon.
Yes.
He did a great job, fantastic job, and it's funny because I'm so critical, especially of my own kids. I'd sit there in sessions and go, I don't know,
you better on that read. That. No, do a retake.
Yeah, and then when I finally saw the completed project, I went, oh no, Craig was right. Yeah, it's better just keeping it raw, and not, as a really great old musician friend of mine, composer, says, picking the fly poop out of the pepper.
I mean, well, I'm curious on that note too. Like, was that something? Because I mean, there's so many. There's one in particular. I have tried in every ounce of my ability to find Alex Doduk. I don't know if you ever worked with him, but he was one of the kid actors. He was on like Mega Man and Inuyasha and a bunch of stuff. But he was a kid that like made me think I could maybe do this when I was in middle school.
Oh, cool.
And he was one of the guys that, like, shortly after his voice dropped, I think he maybe did it till he was about, like, 16 or so, or something like that. He stopped and then vanished, and I cannot anywhere find him just to be like, hey, thanks. Like, you kind of helped inspire me.
If I knew his face, because it's not ringing a bell right now.
Yeah.
Not that I would be connected to him, but I can't quite place him. But you bring up an interesting point there about his voice changing and then kind of disappearing.
Yeah.
My experience with young boy actors is exactly what happened with my son. When they're little, their voices are super cute, and if they can read, they can pretty much do it.
Yeah.
And if they can, take direction and not be a shrinking violet. You can make it as a little boy voice actor. But it's the ones who really love acting who continue after their voice changes. So Andrew Francis is one of those guys.
Yeah.
Who else? I'm trying to think of some other young guys. I mean, Andrea Libman, that doesn't really count. Her voice has been the same since she was 3.
Yeah. I mean, it just even more pitched up, but I'm even trying to. Oh, Mark Hildreth.
Thank you. I was just going to say Mark Hildreth is another guy.
He's out here.
Those guys continue because they're actors. And my son wasn't ever really. I mean, he could certainly do it, and he did a great job. Like, he was an actor, but he didn't love acting. So, as soon as you get that first Dear John, Dear Philip letter, which is we have to replace you.
Season 2, we got to get another kid, and it's going to reset, and it's
And I set them up, both my wife and I. We've been around this business forever, and I right from the beginning, I just said, when your voice changes, just be ready, because they're going to want it to sound the same, and you're going to be out of a job. And if you want to keep going, that's great. If you don't, then go do something else. So
yeah. Well, I'm very happy Claire's continuing, because not just saying this, but she is my. I have not watched My Little Pony in quite some time. I'll probably go check out the movie when that hits theaters. But no, Sweetie Belle was my favorite of the 3 little kid characters, and she was very funny on that. So props to her.
Yeah, no, I'm pretty happy with her work too. We do conventions together. Actually, it was only since Claire and the whole brony phenomenon in the last 5 years that I really did any conventions, because the convention thing started. I mean, I guess there's always been conventions, but again, attributable to the internet. Like, the fan culture just exploded because of that World Wide Web of, oh, you're a fan? Yeah. Oh, look how many people there are. Let's do something. So I was invited to lots of conventions over, 15, 20 years. But because I had a little family and I just didn't do it. I just didn't, and it kind of was lost on me how huge a fandom there was for, like, the original Dragon Ball Z. Like, when people find out, okay, here's a story from one of the first conventions that Claire did. I think it was in Seattle, called Everfree Northwest. And I was there as Claire's dad. I was not a guest. I was just like, here, we're going to take you over to the green room, and we're going to take you to this panel. And, because she was a little kid. And I thought the whole thing was pretty weird until I got to know who the fan base was and who bronies really were. And then I went, oh, actually, no, that's not that weird. You guys are just sweet for the most part. I mean, you can't overgeneralize. But anyway, so we're in this sort of backstage room with all the, the luminaries and the people who are running the show and everything. And Claire's holding court, this little pipsqueak over there, telling jokes to a room or to a table full of 20-year-old men, and they're all loving it, and I'm like literally 50 feet away at another table, just kind of watching, but I'm not. I don't want to get into her thing. Let her do her deal, and I start noticing like lemurs or gophers maybe, these heads popping up out of their table, and then I can feel them looking at me, and I'm going, what the hell? What's going on? And one by one, whoop, 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 and then one guy stands up and points at me, and then Claire goes, "Get over here, Dad! Come here, come here!" All right, fine. So I come over, and this guy, the guy who stood up, I wish I could remember his name. He's a tall guy. He was one of the organizers of the thing. Was shaking, and he said, "Your daughter just told me you are Goku?" And I said, "Yeah, I was the original voice of Goku." And he goes, "You are my childhood." And then he says, "And you did this." And he starts listing off, sort of like you did, listing off my credits. And I'm going, "Oh, geez. Well, yeah. Hey, no, thanks." And I really, up until that moment, did never not register. Speak English, Ian. It never registered how big and how important, if you can use that word, my early work was to a whole generation. So then I kind of went, gee, I better embrace this and and try to be nicer to people.
Oh, well, you know what's also kind of interesting about, particularly in your case, and two certain roles in that of the early, I guess, 20, 30 something episodes of DBZ you did.
Yep.
And then also the Ruby Spears Mega Man cartoon.
Yeah.
Both lend themselves very well to very, I don't know if you've ever seen any of them or if anybody's linked them to you, but very silly kind of viral YouTube video parody type things where they take clips and kind of like remix them around.
Yes,
and
yes. No, I've seen lots of those.
Yeah, some of which are actually a good friend of mine is responsible for, like unwittingly. He just made them for shits back in the day, and then just by proxy, they happened to have both your Mega Man and your Goku in them, and they became, I hope my body can take it, and, go ahead and try it, or all that stuff.
Yeah,
I'm just like, wow. That's, something else. Because, I mean, like, and also considering, like, in those days, like, Dragon Ball Z was very heavily censored.
Yes.
And also that I think people have come to, in probably an ironic way, come to appreciate the Ruby Spears Mega Man cartoon because it's entertaining. It's worth a chuckle. It's probably not a good show, but it's very, very entertaining to hear you, particularly you and Scott, just being insane on that show all the time.
It was pretty fun.
Oh Lord. No, it's cool. And I mean, like, and actually it even kind of, it makes me sad to seeing that, like, there's so few, I mean, like, once in a while we'll get like, what was on Netflix? Dino Trucks.
Oh yeah.
Stuff like that. But like, I get sad when I'm like, man, I miss my Canadian, cartoons and anime dubs and things. Like, I feel we're redubbing one of the Gundam series that was done. In Vancouver originally. One of the ones that was, I think, after you stopped doing ADR stuff, but it was and even I'm just like, oh, I like the old one, even though I'm in the new one, but I'm like, oh, but I like the old one too.
Yeah. It's funny. I'm going to get into some controversial territory here, though, but on the subject of dubbing, and forgive me if you do a lot of it, but there was a movie. Let me start. I'm trying to phrase this correctly.
Well, by the way, I'll go into. I do a lot of it, but I also I understand why a lot of people feel like, all right, I think I'm done with ADR. I think I'm going to move on from that. I totally understand why people, kind of get to that point. So that's not. Like,
so
I think you're too good for anime. Oh, okay.
Yeah, no, that like in this part of the world, back in that part of the history, doing ADR was thankless and paid not just poorly, but awfully, like really bad.
Yeah.
And if you get to the point where you've kind of felt like, gee, this is taking me away from things that I could really be doing better work and getting paid properly for.
And saving my voice for.
Yeah, it just like there comes that time for a lot of people where they say enough. But I'm going to go a little bit further because I want to try and be controversial.
Oh, look at you. All right, well.
What was the big anime movie in theaters last year, maybe even early this year, that everyone was talking about? It was about like there was a boyfriend, girlfriend, and she changed genders and stuff.
It was Your Name.
Your Name.
Yeah,
okay.
That was this year. Yeah.
Okay, so I heard all about it, and I said, I better go see that, because I should. And I went to it in the theater, and it was sort of a daytime show, so there was me and a bunch of anime fans who were really into it, and I thought, this is really cool. Where did all these people come from? Mm-hmm. And I sat there and thought, and this is coming from, told you this is difficult for me because I'm kind of humming and hawing.
You didn't like it. You didn't like the dub. Go ahead. Go ahead and say it.
So I didn't like the dub. I did not like the dub. And
how dare you?
Here's why.
Okay.
I watch a lot of foreign films, and I always watch them with subtitles. I'm not a giant anime watcher, obviously, but when I watch foreign films or foreign TV series, I read and I listen to the actors, and you get a real sense of the performance because of that. With dubbing, because it is a technical skill, as you well know, you're trying to fit things into spaces that are finite, and it's a technical skill as well as acting. So it's, in some ways, it's a lot harder to act and dub in that format.
Yeah.
But I just found that there was emotions that were bigger than life, and I started to form a theory that there's a segment of the population who really like that sort of heightened acting. So like if someone's scared, they're really scared. Or if someone is, emotional, they're really emotional. And do you know what I mean? Like there's a thing.
I do.
And I kept, and I could see that it was resonating with the audience. And I go, okay, what's the matter with me? Well, it's different strokes for different folks, obviously. But the theory that I developed was, I would love for someone to do this, like on a larger scale, but I think anime fans might just find that movies of the 30s, 40s, and 50s, live action American movies, they might love, because that was the style of acting that was prevalent.
Well, everybody was a cartoon character.
Yeah.
Of course. Yeah.
And I wonder if there's something to that, like maybe real is just too real for a lot of audiences, and obviously animation takes it out of that reality, because it's animated, but it was the acting that the audience was responding to that really made me, I've because I wasn't thrilled with it, I had time to be analytical.
Well, see, this was interesting too. I will go on record that dub was actually directed by two good friends of mine, who I actually consider to be some of the best folks that do anime, and they also starred in it as the two characters.
Yeah, so there you go. I just stuck my foot right in it,
whatever.
Squished it around.
Whatever. No, but this is what's interesting to me about this, because actually, I think if I'm remembering your repertoire, possibly with the exception of, I guess, Ranma for the time you were on that show.
Yep.
I think that actually most of the anime that you would have done at the time was stuff that was like, okay, we're gonna like really redo this and like take a lot of liberties with the writing, and we're gonna take a lot of liberties with the music and the name changes and stuff. Because again, like early Dragon Ball Z. Like now, actually, I don't know if you've heard of this before, but there was a version called Dragon Ball Kai where
yes,
what Funimation was like, okay, now that we know how to do this, we've done a lot of really good series and done them properly. Let's do that with Dragon Ball, and so now I don't know if you've met Schemmel or Sabat or any of the Texas
don't know
guys,
any of them.
But
I just hear the controversy.
Well, that's okay. But yeah, I mean, like they got to go back and like, okay, let's do this properly and not try to sorry, but apologies to Barry Watson if he's ever going to hear this, but watering it down for 10-year-olds.
Sure.
And so like, it's night and day compared to, any of the previous versions. And I'm like, oh yeah, this is the show. And it's interesting because it like anime in particular, it's come a very, very long way. It's so different now. And like even for Vancouver too, this is I think long after you had stopped doing ADR, but eventually when Ocean would get shows like Death Note for example, I'm sure a lot of your colleagues talked about that show. Like that was one that was like marvelously well done and like was super serious, not a kiddie show at all. I bought every performance from that, and I'm like, yeah, this is how far this is coming. And that was 10 years ago.
Yeah, that's cool. That's cool.
Yeah.
And for the purist, I guess that's what really we're talking about is we've got the purists, and I would classify myself as that when it comes to foreign films and movies and stuff, TV. We're talking about the same sort of thing where you go, no, I want to see the show that they made.
Yeah.
I don't want it fixed. and I don't know if you know this, but that's how we started Dragon Ball. That's how I became Goku. Is my partner and I had a production company at that time, and we reversioned. That was our job, was fixing those anime scripts and making them North American. So not only was I voicing it, but we were writing and reversioning these things at the same time, and that's how I got into that.
Yeah. Which I think you've even told the story of why It's Over 9,000 became so so elongated, and that was another one that was a big internet phenomenon, unbeknownst to Brian Drummond until way later. But I don't know. That is interesting. I guess so. In a slight way, that makes you a bit of an otaku. That you're a sub anime purist in that way.
Sure, let's say that. Why not? Well, I do like the original intention, good, bad, or indifferent. I mean, you want to see what the creators and the artists and the filmmakers made. And if you don't happen to speak the language, the only way you can really do that is with subtitles or a really, really true to form dub. And that's tough. I mean, I know it is tough. And I would rather, and I think this has crept into a lot of anime. Not that I have a ton of experience with it currently, but I really prefer when directors go, we're not that concerned about the mouth flaps. Get the performance.
Yeah.
And that's acting, right? That's when it becomes real. And I've gone and I just feel terrible for slamming that movie.
Look, you're allowed to have your opinion. I doubt.
But I do court controversy. I don't know what it is about me.
Maybe you're just an asshole. I don't know.
Maybe. Let's test that.
It's a joke. There's so much I want to talk about.
We'll do part 2 sometime.
I know. Well, see, I kind of almost want to have you back again because I do want to talk about, because I mean, again, I love voiceover. That's what this themed month is about. But I am a creator. That's my first and foremost thing. And I do admit, sadly, I've not gotten to see much of Being Ian because it really didn't air much over here.
No, I think it was on Kubo or I don't know what some weird streaming but not really network in the States. It sold all over the world, not in the U.S.
Yeah, which is a shame because I remember when you were first talking about the premise on Trevor's podcast a long time ago. Oh, that sounds like a show I totally would have been into.
It's right up your alley. It's a kid with an overactive filmic imagination that, every time his thoughts drift, he goes off into another form of not only flight of fancy, but of a whole genre of animation.
And Richard Cox being a goofball,
yeah,
for 22 minutes at a time,
yeah.
Which oh, by the way, oh my God, okay, here's a little did you know trivia, because this just got in my mind.
Okay.
And God, I mean, well, he probably won't be happy to know that this is out there, unfortunately. But you can blame Scott for this because he was like, "Fuck the NDA." So there was a Canadian dub of that Dragon Ball Kai series that was fully recorded. It was the whole show. That is sitting in a vault somewhere, never to be aired. I don't know what the hell happened with it, but they redid the whole show, and they got Scott and Drummond and everybody back to do it again. And they recast a few characters, and Richard, from what I've heard from multiple people, was going to be Goku in it. So taking your parts many times, evidently, in that he's playing the self-insert Ian character, and then he takes Goku from you. My God.
Oh, I hate him.
Richard.
And it's funny, they would never, ever, ever think to ask me. Which, for something like that, I would probably consider it in today's world. Yep.
Really?
There's breaking news for your show.
Wow.
I would actually do it.
Well, it was recorded. That's the crazy thing is supposedly it was recorded like a long time ago, and it was supposed to air in Canada and in like Europe and stuff, and then it just never did. And it's like 90-something episodes of the whole thing.
Wow.
Just sitting in a vault, never to be aired. Yeah, and I would have loved to see it because I was there were a couple of movies that this was after Peter, I think, took over doing Goku, but Funimation did a couple of movies still. It was the last thing they did in Vancouver with that cast. And they did them uncut with like proper scripts and the original music and stuff. And I was like, oh, cool, okay. And
so how long ago would this have been?
Recording the Kai dub?
Yeah.
I think it would have been, I remember hearing somebody talked about the auditions for it when they shouldn't have been early.
Who was that? I mean, it's past history, right? So it doesn't matter.
Well, I don't want to get into in trouble, but I didn't say that. But yeah, it was talked about like, oh, we're re-auditioning, I think like 2010, 2011, and like Funimation was already doing theirs, and yeah, and a friend of mine told me it's like they did the whole thing, like 90-something episodes, and never came out. So it's a real shame. It's
bizarre.
The lost, and that's so. I remember also what was that Pac-Man series you played a bunch of guys on? Like, I remember hearing about that like so long ago, and I saw the trailer where I think it had you and Sam and a bunch of guys in it, and then like it just sat in a vault, and then eventually it aired, I think, on Nickelodeon maybe, and I was like, oh yeah, why did that take so long?
Yeah, that was a weird one. And there's been a number of Pac-Man shows too, so that serves to confuse people when they're searching for stuff. It's like, oh, which one is it?
Yeah,
because that one, the one we're talking about, is the Ghostly Adventures of Pac-Man, Pac-Man and the Ghostly Adventures, something like that.
Yeah,
fun show.
Oh my God. Well, I guess maybe I will have you on for a part 2. Because I would love to talk about being a creator and being a showrunner.
Absolutely,
that is my like ultimate dream of things to do. But excuse me, I guess to kind of go out on, we're hitting the hour mark. Any like particular? I mean, I know there's so much to comb through, but like any particular like stories, funny moments, favorite shows to work on, favorite people to work with in your long history? Yes,
that's a really easy one to answer. In this way, and it is appropriate timing because a very good friend of mine is prematurely retiring. Andrea Romano, you must know about this.
Yes.
And she embodies everything that a director should be.
Yeah.
And aside from us, becoming friends after working on stuff up here in Vancouver, she's a good human, and the most important thing is she likes actors, and that is job one for a director. If you don't like actors, please do not apply. Like if they're a problem for you, which we are. I mean, we're all a bunch of idiots, right?
That's true. Yeah.
So, you need to embrace that and go, what are these people bringing to this project that we're all working on? We need you. So anyway, back to Andrea. She is officially retired now, 1st of September. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to a big shindig that they're having for her in a week or so, and I'm really looking forward to that. But I just want to tell you my Andrea Romano story because it will. It's one of the reasons why that question of yours was easy for me to answer. About 1984-ish, I had started, pounding the pavement here in Vancouver, being, with my eyes on being a commercial voiceover actor. I really wanted to do cartoons. So this is pre-animation work happening in Vancouver. Mm-hmm. I found out that this lady in Los Angeles worked for HannaBarbera, and her name was Andrea. And I wrote her a letter, and with ink and a postage stamp. And I said, "Hey, I'm gonna be in Los Angeles, and I am a big shot wannabe voice actor. And I really want to do animation. I got a decent resume starting in commercials, but I really want to do animation." And she said, "When you're in town, you come in and I will read you." And wow. I went, wow, okay. And because I had sent her a cassette tape as well.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And not only with that response did she say, "Come and see me when you're in town," but she gave me some notes on my demo tape. So that was cool. So I take a trip to Los Angeles, going to Disneyland. And one of the days I went, we set up this thing. So I walk into the old HannaBarbera building and the old HannaBarbera recording studio. And wow. I had never seen that many Neumann microphones in my life. Like it was I have since seen that loads of times. But because we weren't doing, we weren't doing any animation in Vancouver at that point, I had never seen a room full of 12 microphones, radio show style. So that immediately blew me away. She gave me copy from Hanna-Barbera shows, and I read it, and she went, "This is, very good job, and gave me some notes, gave me a pat on the head, and said, you keep at it and, keep me posted." Well, the reality is, what a pipe dream that was, because I couldn't work in the States. I could, there's a whole nother interview we can do, because now I actually have a residence in LA, as I think and I work there as well as Vancouver. So I work everywhere. But then, not only had I not done any animation, it was a total pipe dream to be able to work in the U.S., but was that an ego boost? I just felt great. This is like one of the big shots who, took time out of her day, held my hand, did the thing, and it was fantastic. Now, fast forward about 6 years, maybe even more. Back to IMDb. Hold on.
I believe in you.
It's coming.
We're gonna find the answer.
Gotta do it.
We'll do it together.
I'm looking for. Okay, hold on. No, I'm gonna, because it's gonna give away the story. Just hang on for a second here.
No editing.
There is no editing. Okay, so maybe it's like 9 years after. There is a little show coming, being created in Vancouver by a bunch of crazy Englishmen who use computers to make to make animation, and it's called Reboot.
Reboot, the best.
Yes,
the best.
So I go into this audition and I hear ahead of time, as I mentioned earlier in the interview, most, if not all, of the big shows that were being done here were being directed by Los Angeles directors.
Yeah.
I see that her name is on the list, and I go in, I read for it, And I say, you're not going to remember me. And then I told her, I recount that story that I just told you. And she goes, oh, really? Was I nice to you? I said, yes, yes, you were. Yes, you were. You were very nice to me, and I really appreciate it. And it meant the world to me, or like really sincerely. And she was very gracious, and it was awesome. And I didn't get cast on Reboot.
Well,
but ultimately I did. Ultimately
yes,
I did.
yes.
But that's another story for another time. And ultimately Andrea didn't last very long on Reboot either, because she directed too quickly.
Oh,
she got fired.
My God.
Yeah, this guy. I'm not going to mention names, but one of the big time producers. There were chemicals involved. There was a lot going on at that time. I'm sure. She didn't fit his profile of no, you need to put these actors through the ringer. And, if we're paying for a full session, we're going to squeeze it out of them. And she went, like a good director, if I got it, I got it. Let's move on. Right. Anyway, so she got fired. A year or so later, I got cast in something that she did. What was the next thing she did up here? It was Littlest Pet Shop, the original.
Oh, okay. Cool.
And we became friends. And then I did more shows with her, and we became closer, and she knows my babies, and we visit and all of that stuff. And Andrea is just the bomb. And in honor of her premature retirement due to an optical eye issue, that is, to answer your question, my favorite story, favorite work experience, all wrapped into one.
Well, that is truly, I'm not just blowing smoke. That's pretty magical.
Yeah.
That's a great story. And yeah, I mean, Andrea's, her history of work speaks for itself. I mean, I adore all of the stuff she's worked on, and there's a lot of people in town very sad who never got the opportunity to get to work with her at any point.
Yep.
But so count yourselves among the lucky.
I do, and I count myself lucky that she felt the way she did about my work. It was like, wow, what a stamp of approval. Thank you.
Oh, and I'm even remembering, I think you might have told this story on Trevor's thing, but when you came to visit here one time, long before you were living here, didn't she toss you a Justice League episode?
Oh, maybe? Yeah. She did that all the time.
Oh.
It was fantastic, because I've been able to work in the U.S. since about 2000, but I didn't actually live there. And anytime we spent a lot of time in Palm Springs, and anytime I was going to be in town for a pitch meeting or something, we can talk about that later in round 2 of creating and making shows. I'd say, hey, I'm coming. Do you have anything? And she'd throw me a bone. I did Batman. I did the very first of I think the still current. Was it I did a Superman, and then what's the most current Batman series? Batman Beyond?
No, that was.
Beware the Batman.
Yes, yeah, that was that lasted a little pretty quick.
Yeah, I did episode 1, I think, of that.
Wow.
And so she did that frequently, and ironically, believe me, this is not sour grapes. It's just because it's an ironic story. She was a huge reason for my shift and my change to start working in Los Angeles a couple of years ago.
Okay.
We had a real heart-to-heart, and she said, get your butt down here. You should be here. Just do it.
Yeah.
And I went, okay. And I did, in 2 years, not worked for her once.
I know. Isn't it the worst? By the way, tell Scott to get his ass down here. I wrote in a question. Brent, I don't know if you know Brent Miller, but he did a thing.
Yep.
Yeah, he was doing an interview with Scotty on his YouTube channel recently. He's awesome. And I was like, hey, did you ever consider it? He's like, I think I missed my window a good 10 years ago. And I'm like, that's bullshit. Get your ass down here. You dominate. You guys would all dominate. I swear to God.
I think I'm more on your side of it than his. But the reality is, and a lot of people just don't realize this that are American, is it's very, very difficult to do that. It's, I mean, you guys, if you're from Oklahoma or, Boston or whatever, hey, I'm going to move to LA. I'm going to do my thing. No problem. All you need is a U-Haul. And as a Canadian, big problem. It's, I mean, there is, to quote our orange leader, there is extreme vetting, and it's complicated and it's expensive. So
yeah, true enough.
That's why. And Scotty, I have no doubt that he would be great and be a force to be reckoned with in Los Angeles. But I understand him. I understand his thing. And I can say this because this isn't airing like today, is it?
No.
Okay, because on the 15th of September, since we're talking about Scotty, where his ex-wife, who clearly is still they're on speaking terms, has arranged a huge surprise party for his birthday on the 15th, and that's one of the reasons I'm in Vancouver is to be there. So.
That's lovely. Well, this will be a month after that. So happy month past birthday.
Happy
to Scott
belated
McNeil.
Birthday, Scotty. He's exactly the same age as me. We're like two weeks apart. So I'm gonna actually the real reason I'm here for the party is I'm gonna appropriate it for myself.
Make it a double birthday.
Yeah. Thank you all. Thank you so much for coming. Really appreciate it.
Well, and also, even though you're not here at the moment, you're a force to be reckoned with here in LA. We're happy to have you. So, hey, thank you for taking the time to do this. This was awesome.
I would say anytime, but that's a lie. It's not that I don't have the will. I mean anytime. Let's do it again when it works.
Yeah, for sure. I would love to do one about creating. I will say right here. I'll hold myself to this. I will make it a point to watch some episodes of Being Ian, come in prepared, and have some real knowledge beyond just the catchy as hell theme song in the beginning.
Awesome, which I wrote, by the way.
Yes, it's quite nice.
I love that song.
I gotta, because I doubt this would ever happen at a convention or something, but I gotta get you and Sean Schemmel as like dueling Gokus on a podcast interview, because I actually think you two would get along, because he's a lot more out there than you, but he's equally as like controversial and says whatever he feels like.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you one thing. What I'm not controversial about is about other actors. Yeah. And like, hey, more power to you. If that's your thing, you got that role, whatever. Like, great, super duper duper. I'm a little wary only because I think maybe because the fans are so passionate, they kind of stir things up. Certainly not with me. I mean, I want to make that absolutely clear. Like, I don't I think it's fantastic if people go, hey, Ian's the #1 Goku. He created the character. He's the guy. Great. Thank you so much for thinking that. But it's not at the expense of Sean, who's done 1 million episodes. Like, give the guy a break. But I have seen that he's kind of touchy about that. So,
well, he's a good guy. I legit think that if you guys actually met, I think that it actually
sure. Well,
I'm
game for anything.
Maybe someday, everybody.
Yeah. Over to you.
There we go. All right. Well, Ian, thank you so much. This was awesome. To everybody, thank you for listening. And in the comments below, if you have any particular favorite characters, shows, anything that Ian is prominently featured in, anything you hope that maybe he might show up in the future, let us know. If you're Being Ian and or Yvon of the Yukon fan also, if you're up there in Canada, I know I have some Canadian listeners, let us know as well. Look forward to my next couple of guestos. I've got some other fine folks that are going to be joining me for the month of Voiceoctover. And we will see you on the next one. So, Ian, thank you very much, and we'll catch you all next time. Bye.
Bye.